Welcome, all my fellow Washington brethren and sisters. I am your man and resident Washington football team fan, Lou. Thank you for joining me here, the Washington Football Report Training Camp Confidential, wrapping up the week that was in Richmond. We talked about the offense already. Now let's move to the defensive side of the football and things that transpired over in Richmond. So let's start with the defensive line. And the headline there is defensive line backup battles are one to watch. So we know who the starters are on the defensive line. Chase Young, Montez Sweat. The thing that's really intriguing, I've pretty much dismissed Casey Toohill. I think that was a mistake. We'll get into that here in a second. But Chase Young working on bending the corner and awareness. One of the things he talked about having was more flexibility. He showed us his toe exercises that he's been doing and all of the things he's done to be a little bit more flexible in the ankle toe region, to bend the corner, to be a little bit stronger, to keep his ankles a little bit more stronger and things of that nature. So all of those things you're starting to see come to fruition at camp. If he can turn that corner and bend it a little bit more at that 45-degree angle, he's going to be even more ferocious than he was as a rookie. And these are the types of steps and things you expect from that second-year leap. If you're looking for that monumental leap that we think could potentially be on the horizon, these are the types of things you have to do, and Young is doing it. He's also taking on a much bigger leadership role, which we already knew was coming. This guy is a natural-born leader. He's also doing that as well. Montez Sweat being more vocal thus far. A lot of trash talk from Montez Sweat. I love it because Sweat, typically quiet dude, goes about his business human-like, doesn't like talking to the media. I think he's one of those dudes, once he gets to know you, he'll talk your head off. He'll be joking with you. He's probably a hell of a teammate, but one of those guys that really doesn't talk to people that he doesn't know. This year, he seems to be coming out of his shell a bit. A lot of talking. Every time one of these beat reporters are tweeting out something that happened at practice and he's making a play, he's talking some shit. And this is going all the way back to OTAs. So Montez Sweat is being very, very vocal, and I think this is setting up for a massive season for him. I thought he was the most improved player last year on the team, and you could argue he was the best defensive player on the team last year, and I think he's looking to take that next step. So Montez Sweat having a great start to camp. James Smith-Williams, season control over that first backup defensive end position. I think we've talked about this already. He was going to be the guy. After Sweat and Young, it was going to be James Smith-Williams because he was here last year. He got the reps last year. They liked him last year. He played solid football for us last year. Well, there is no Ryan Kerrigan, obviously. They didn't bring in another veteran to step in front of him, so he just moves up the line, and he's been really solid to start, and he was outstanding at times in Richmond. So I think it's safe to say that he's on this roster, barring any kind of catastrophe. He's going to be on this football team. They love his versatility, his ability to kick inside. Remember, they used him inside as a D tackle at times last season as well. So all of those things make for James Smith-Williams being a lock to make this football team. What I was not really taking into consideration and kind of dismissing was Casey Toohill and his potential lock on this football team as the second backup defensive end. They're only probably going to carry 4, maybe 5 at the most defensive ends. More likely than not, I think they're going to carry 4 defensive ends. And Casey Toohill taking the majority of reps with that second team defense, meaning when they go to that second team defensive line, James Smith-Williams is at one end and Casey Toohill is at the other end, which means they're not really giving Shaka Toney a lot of reps right now. They're not really looking at William Bradley King right now as a guy that could take over for Casey Toohill at this point. Now, that's not to say that by the time we get to preseason game number 2 that they're now putting in Shaka Toney or William Bradley King as that second defensive end alongside James Smith-Williams, or even with that first team as they're shuffling in guys with the first team as they already seen enough of Sweat and Young, and they start shuffling in guys. And who's to say that he's not, William Bradley King or Shaka Toney getting reps before Toohill? But right now, Casey Toohill is taking the vast majority of that second defensive end, backup defensive end reps, And he made an interception in the red zone on a ball that I talked about earlier that was deflected by rookie safety Derek Forrest. Toohill makes a diving interception. So I think they really like Casey Toohill. And I think I might have been a little hasty in dismissing him and his role potentially on this football team. William Bradley King is another guy that I was kind of like, cool, he'll end up on the practice squad. He probably ultimately will end up on the practice squad, but his versatility is showing early. I thought one of the reasons they drafted him out of Baylor was because he had versatility. They stood him up. They moved him around. He was in a 2-point stance. He was in a 3-point stance. He was inside. He was outside. These were the things that they probably were attracted to William Bradley King because of. His ability to do multiple things and not just be a base defensive end. And so they've moved him around at camp. He's flashed. The first day at camp in Richmond, he was all over the field. They couldn't block him. So he's a guy that has shown some things early on. And Shaka Toney's been very quiet to start. That was the guy that I pegged as the fourth defensive end, the guy that was going to wow everyone. He's been very, very quiet to start. So that's something to keep an eye on as we continue to get closer and closer to preseason game number 1 versus the New England Patriots. Is where is Shaka Toney in his development? Because right now, William Bradley King and Shaka Toney both sound like they're destined for the practice squad, but we will see. Some quick news and notes inside. You have defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, who had a minor strain of his hamstring, so he's day-to-day. He'll be fine. They expect him back at practice shortly. As a matter of fact, it sounded like he was at practice today. Still not quite sure if he practiced or not. We'll talk more about that on day 2's wrap-up of camp back in Ashburn, the first day of padded practices. But Allen had a hamstring. Matt Ioannidis was placed on the COVID-19 list. So that's another guy that was not able to practice. Remember, Washington at one point had 7 guys on the COVID-19 list, including Matt Ioannidis and Daron Payne. So the defensive tackle position got a little bit lean there, and some guys had to step up and step in and take some of those reps. Linebackers going to work. So Jamin Davis praised for his retention of the playbook by Ron Rivera and other coaching staff members. One of the things that they really wanted to see from Davis is his ability to master the defense, because as the middle linebacker, you are one of the coaches, if not the coach of the defense. When defensive coordinators line up their defense, they want their strongest players up the middle a lot of times. Linebacker and safety have to be among the most smartest because they're the guys that are getting everyone lined up. So Davis's ability to really be honed in on the playbook has really gave Ron and company a comfort level that, hey, we can put a little bit more on this guy's plate. And I heard from Davis for the first time in an interview after one of the practices. I'm really impressed. He strikes me as a Terry McLaurin type. Sharp kid, head on his shoulders, really dialed in. We got nothing to worry about there. Okay. He gets it. Now it's just about translating all of his physical, God-given abilities onto the football field. Him slowing the game down, him being able to see it before it happens. The kid's smart. He gets it. He's got it up here. That's always great to know. Cole Holcomb looks to be more comfortable in coverage. One of the things Holcomb was lauded and praised for when he was drafted here was his speed and his athleticism, but that doesn't mean anything if you aren't locked into what's trying to be done to you. And, for the first couple of years, he was solid in coverage, but he wasn't great. He seems to be turning the corner now. Year 2, and I've talked about this, especially with Cole Holcomb. Every year he's been here, brand new defensive coordinator, brand new scheme. When he was drafted in 2019, brand new, that was his first year in that scheme. We were in a 3-4 under Jay Gruden. Last year, he gets a new defensive coordinator in Jack Del Rio. This year, it's the first time he's had the same defensive coordinator back-to-back years. So this is something that I think we can be excited about with Cole Holcomb going into the season. He's showing that he's a lot more comfortable, not falling for the play-action fake as easily, not falling for some of the crossover moves that guys like to put on you out of the backfield as a running back, or even the tight ends trying to separate. He seems to have a much more solid knowledge of what's trying to be done to him and understanding where he needs to be in order to make a play. So that is encouraging right now, because he's going to be on the field a ton along with Jamin Davis, if I had to guess. John Bostic proven to be an invaluable leader with these young linebackers. Look, I told you I wanted him on this team. A lot of you wanted him gone. I said, look, there is a place for John Bostic on this team. It is not as a starter, but a guy that can step in if we need, a backup to step in on a temporary basis. I think Bostic can do that. And I said, another thing about John Bostic is that he's extremely smart, which is why they were comfortable with him being on the field last year for as many snaps as he was. This guy played like 98% of the snaps last year, something along those lines, 98, 99. They had him on the field because he was smart. They knew they could trust him to line guys up. There was, I think the only percentage of snaps he really missed last year were the ones against the Cowboys when he was ejected out of the game with that hit against Andy Dalton. Other than that, he's played in just about every single game and every single snap. They trust him. They know he's going to get everybody lined up. They know he knows what is being done out there on the field. He's a film rat. And so he's been outstanding with these young linebackers. Jamin Davis has talked about it, about how John Bostic has been a linchpin of that group. And I've heard people talk about Bostic's knowledge of the game and how if he wanted to, there's a coach position waiting for him after his career is done. He's that smart as a player. So Bostic is proving to be invaluable, and he adds depth to that linebacking core that I think is not as deep as you would like it to be. Khaleke Hudson, though, continues to get reps as that Buffalo nickel defender. Now, they've moved guys around. Hudson continues to show the ability to play in coverage. That's going to be his calling card to me defensively, is his ability to run, cover guys. He's been outstanding. This goes all the way back to OTAs. He continued that, a couple of knockaways, had an opportunity for a couple of interceptions, dropped both of them, but was able to get his hands on the football nonetheless. Always seems to be in the right position where he needs to be to make a play on the football, always looking back for the ball, which is half the battle with these linebackers. So Khaleke Hudson, for me, is a guy that is continuing to develop, and I love that versatility that he brings. Gives us another guy that you can throw out there in that Buffalo nickel situation. Cornerbacks' versatility will be key. That's one of those positions to keep your eye on, because we've talked so much about moving this guy around, moving that guy around. Versatility is going to be key for some of these guys to even make the football team. We start with William Jackson III. Him and Terry McLaurin have been the number one battle. They were the number one battle at Richmond. I think that's going to continue to be the number one battle throughout camp. When those guys go one-on-one, it's going to be a spectacle. Each of them have had their fair share of wins to this point, but William Jackson III brings a different level of swagger to this defense. He's talked about talking trash a little bit, and that being a part of his game as well. So he's getting comfortable and fitting in right nicely with this defense to this point. Benjamin St-Juste has been up and down in coverage to this point. Remember, I wasn't that high on him coming out of Minnesota. I'm still skeptical at best at this point. He's been very grabby at times. That was my biggest knock on him at Minnesota, is that he is very handsy. Very handsy, okay? Still needs to show he's capable of coverage down the field, and not talking zone. I think he's very capable of playing zone. Cover 3, cover 4. That's not a problem. I think they want to see him play man-to-man down the field. Remember, this is not a 4-4 guy. Now, he has the length to make up for not having that 4-4 speed, but can he stay in the hip pocket without tugging and grabbing, hugging and loving? A couple of instances where Terry McLaurin was like, yo, if this was a game, you would have been flagged for holding at a minimum pass interference if the ball's in the air, because you are absolutely mugging me. So I've still got my doubts about Benjamin St-Juste. We'll see. We'll see what Juice provides for us, but things get really interesting with Juice. Here's why. Kendall Fuller, playing outside to start, which we expect, but when they bring Juice in, They then kick Kendall Fuller inside to nickel, which is what we've talked about as fans. And I said, we think we're smarter than, a lot of these guys, but it makes a lot of sense. But everything that makes sense to us doesn't necessarily fit into the equation that the coaching staff has put together. Well, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure this one out. That they drafted Juice. He's a boundary corner. He's not a guy that you can kick inside. He's big, he's tall, he's long. He's exactly what they're looking for. He gets into the game. Kendall Fuller is a guy they want on the field. He was best at nickel when he was here the first time. Makes a ton of sense to toss him inside. They're doing that with Fuller. I'm excited about that, but it only works if Juice is handling his business on the outside. So that's intriguing, and they showed a little bit of that in Richmond with Fuller going inside with their 3 cornerback look. Danny Johnson getting reps as a punt returner. I was waiting for that to happen. We've heard about all these receivers fielding punts, but we hadn't heard about Danny Johnson doing it. I don't know what they were waiting on. It finally came to fruition. He was really good last year. I've talked about this so many times about Danny Johnson fielding punts. So I'm glad he's back there getting an opportunity. That's going to be the way he makes this football team. They may like Danny Johnson as a corner, but in order for him to really make this team, I think he has to make them confident in them, instill confidence in the coaching staff and in special teams coordinator Nate Kazzer that, hey, if y'all need me, y'all may not see me as your primary punt returner, but if y'all need me, if just like last year, Greg Stroman goes down, I stepped in, or Steven Sims goes down, I step in. If y'all need me, I can do it. If he can do that again, I think he'll end up with a roster spot here in Washington. Jimmy Moreland skied high for one of the best defensive plays of Richmond with an INT. Jimmy seems to make these plays when things don't count. We got excited about Jimmy as a rookie, people's corner, this, that, and the third, because of what he did in camp. And then we saw flashes in the preseason. Then we get to the regular season, we don't see any of that. Last year, we were all excited about Jimmy again. We get into the regular season. He tantalizes us with that first game with the interception against the Eagles. I don't know if Jimmy got his hands on another ball the rest of the season. And I may be over-exaggerating. And he may have had another interception, and he may have had 4 or 5 more pass breakups. I just don't feel like Jimmy got around the football nearly enough after that first game against Philadelphia. But this isn't the first time we've heard about Jimmy using that athleticism to make a play. I think Jimmy can play ball. I just don't know if Jimmy is, best inside. And that's always been my thing. So we'll see. Troy Apke, I know a lot of y'all have already dismissed Apke, much like Steven Sims Jr. on the offensive side. Trap for a lot of y'all. Done. Yeah, I have nothing to say to him. They're trying to make corner. They're converting him. I think they like his physical makeup. He's 6'2", with long arms. We know how fast he is. I think they want to work with him. He's not going to make this team. Okay, let me just state that. I think they want him on the practice squad. I think they want to continue to work with him. I think they see a lot of Quentin Dunbar in Troy Apke. All right. I think Trap is another one of these guys they think they can convert, work with him, and there may be something there. Don't give up on Trap just yet. Don't give up on Trap just yet. I'm just saying. He's not making his team. But I think he'll be on the practice squad, and don't be surprised if you see 30 out on the football field at some point. If not this year, next year, at the cornerback position. I can't wait to watch him in the preseason at corner. Trap is intriguing to me because I know a lot of you have shitted on him and you're done with him. There could be a second act of Trap that's a lot better than the first. We'll see. Hottest camp battles may be at safety. We talked about the safety position. I told you how comfortable I was with the safety position. But I'm hearing a lot about these safeties, man. And it's getting really hot and heavy. So we start with Landon Collins. To me, he was one of the biggest surprises of Richmond. First of all, who thought Landon Collins was going to be ready to go at the start of training camp the way that he was? I thought he could be ready to go, but I didn't think he would be one of the best defensive players on the field at the start of camp. And he has been to this point. He's been all over the field. Collins himself has said, I feel better athletically now and stronger than I did prior to the Achilles injury. to see where he's come from, this is an injury he sustained in October, and we're now in August. To see how far he's come in such a short period of time, amazing. And then to see him making the plays that he's making, Landon Collins, a lot of you were ready to dismiss him, trade him, cut him, whatever. Let's put that to bed. And I told you guys, Jack Del Rio was like, no, this guy's a starting safety in this league. I don't know what you guys are talking about. He's my starting safety. He's healthy. He's my starting safety. He's not getting cut, guys. He's a part of this defense. So, Landon Collins was one of the biggest surprises of Richmond. Bobby McCain running with the safeties primarily as a free safety. Ron Rivera said he's more of a center fielder than we had a season ago. So, I think I'm going to be wrong on Bobby McCain, and a lot of you out there are going to be right, because I kept saying I think Bobby McCain may be here as a corner, as a nickel, and not so much as a safety. I said there would be versatility. They love the fact that he can do all of those things, but I thought he was going to be more of a corner. Looks like he's going to be more of a safety, and you push him towards that group more so than the cornerbacks. So I think I'm going to be wrong there. That said, with the starting group, they've had McCain at free, Landon Collins at strong, and I know a lot of you were like, well, where's Cam Curl going to be? Cam Curl has been seeing action at all three positions that we expect him to play. A lot of you didn't think that he could play free safety. Well, remember, he was a free safety at Arkansas, and he played corner at Arkansas as well. So he's been playing free safety. He's been playing strong safety, which he played a lot of last year, and he also played a ton of Buffalo nickel, which he's playing this year a ton of as well. And so there have been a lot of, and I told you guys, as I said, you guys keep making it an an or situation. It's going to be an and situation a lot of times. Like, it's either Cam Curl or Landon Collins. I'm like, no, it's and. Those guys are going to be on the field a lot with one another. Now, they won't be on the field all the time together. There'll be times where Cam Curl's off the field. There may even be times where Landon Collins is not on the field. I think it'll be more so Cam Curl than Landon Collins that won't be on the field, but that's nor here nor there. They're going to be on the field a ton together. A ton. More times than not, they're on the field together than they're not on the field. So, Cam Curl has been, and they understand what Cam Curl was last year. They understand how smart this kid is, and they realize how physical he is. They love him, and they want him on the field. They want their best out on the field. So best believe Cam Curl is going to see the field quite a bit. He's showing that now in camp, and he showed that in Richmond, playing three different positions. They love his versatility. He's showing that already. Jeremy Reeves continuing to impress coaches by being where he's supposed to be. He was one of the coaches' favorites last year. Ron talked about not wanting to cut him, but it was a numbers game. And he told Jeremy Reeves, you stick around, you continue doing the things you did, we're going to find a place for you. And remember, they could have signed Eric Reed last year when the injury started to happen at the safety position. They instead went to Jeremy Reeves and said, we're going to give you an opportunity. And Reeves said, I love Coach Rivera. I'll run through a wall for him, because he could have went out there and got somebody else. But he told me he was going to give me an opportunity if I continued to work. He's a man of his word. He gave me an opportunity, and Reeves continues to take that opportunity and run with it. I don't see any way he doesn't make this football team, but that's a guy to continue to watch as we get through camp. Derek Forrest playing well early on, deflected a red zone pass that ended up being intercepted by Casey Toohill. We talked about that already. Has been really good at the safety position. They've been impressed with what he's done to this point. We know he's a core special teamer. If he's going to make the football team, that's going to be the way that he does it. But he's also showing the ability to do some things in coverage, being really physical at the line of scrimmage. He's been hemming up Samis Reyes at the line of scrimmage, really getting in his chest and making life miserable for him. And so I've actually been surprised at what they've gotten out of Derek Forrest to this point. You know, I expected him to be just a special teams guy. I'm anxious to watch him on the field at the safety position as we get into the preseason. DeShazer Everett still hasn't practiced after beginning camp on one of the NFI lists. He was on the non-football illness list to start camp. Reportedly, he was removed from that list and was ready for practice the first day of pads, day 2 in Ashburn. It's perfect timing for him because, to me, DeShazer Everett, his best ball is played with pads on. You can't really get a great feel of what DeShazer Everett is because he's so physical. You know, it's a gift and a curse because he's not the biggest guy in the world and he plays the game physically, and that leads to injuries, which we saw last year with him. But that's what makes me love DeShazer Everett, is that he plays the game with a level of reckless abandon that is fun to watch, and it is also something that you don't see as much anymore with all of these new rules. So I think it is important for him to get on the field because with Bobby McCain running with the safeties, it's getting pretty damn interesting at the safety position. I didn't expect Derek Forrest to really make any noise. He's making noise. I just talked about 6 guys. I just talked about 5 guys and throwing the shazer in there. It's 6 safeties. We talk about them potentially keeping 7 wide receivers. You can't keep 7 receivers if you're keeping 6 safeties. Like, you're going to have to trim off some fat somewhere. If you're going to keep 7 receivers, that means you're probably keeping 26 or 27 offensive players, and that means you're only keeping 24 or 23 defensive players. It's going to be hard. I think where they'll try to trim off some fat is the defensive line. They'll probably go with only 8 defensive linemen, 4 ends, 4 defensive tackles. Linebacker, I think they'll keep it nice and skim with probably 6 of those guys. So that's 14 right there. Corners, I think they'll go with 5 corners. That's 19, and that would give them 6 corners. If they safeties, if they wanted to go with 6, that'll give you 25. If they wanted to go 5 safeties, that would give you 24. Which, if you're gonna go 6 receivers, you'd like to think that it's gonna be 26, 24. Because remember, you got 3 specialists that round out your 53-man roster. So this safety situation is getting really interesting because Reeves, Forrest, Everett, Curl, McCain, Collins. That's a lot of dudes. Somebody's gonna probably get cut that you don't want to cut. And, with Shays missing the first week in Richmond, I don't think that's going to dissuade the staff any. But, guys are getting a head start. So I think the safety position is one that is extremely fascinating. And that's another one of those positions I'm going to be really keying in on as we get closer to the preseason. So that's going to do it for the defensive wrap-up from Richmond. Again, stay tuned to the Louie Tee Network for wall-to-wall coverage of training camp. We'll talk about each and every single day that they practice. We will have a wrap-up of that day's action here. We'll talk about what Ron and all of the different players that stepped up to the podium had to say. So keep it locked here on the Louie Tee Network for all things Washington football team as training camp continues to press on. I am a Washington football fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold until we meet again. Hail to our beloved Washington football team. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys live on Thursday night. We will have a bevy of topics to talk about, but in the meantime, we will continue to break down coverage of camp. So be on the lookout for more camp coverage as these practices continue to unfold. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie Tee, signing off. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie Tee. You guys have a good one. Training Camp Confidential coming at you.
LouieTeeNetwork.